Welcome to the Alltech Radio podcast on YouTube. This is the show where you learn about news and technology related to working in the world of IT. No matter what your job is in IT, we cover all aspects of work-life balance, job duties, salary, and everything else related to computers and technology. I am your host, Professor Robert McMillen, and joining me is my co-host, IT consultant Scott Portinga. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Well, good afternoon, Robert. How we doing?
Oh, doing all right. Of course, we've had a lot of heat here in the Northwest, and it's starting to finally move off. And of course, probably caused a lot of technology problems.
I haven't really seen a whole lot. I got one client that has a air conditioner in their server room that's had so many problems over the years, but it seems to be
It stayed up, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, do you have a lot of clients that will have one of those temperature things that when it trips, that it'll email them to say, hey, it's above a certain temperature?
Not as many as you would think. Those things are quite reasonable. Probably need to talk to a lot of them about getting one of those just because it's handy.
Yeah, they're about $100. I think one of them is called a Watchdog, is it?
Yeah, I think Watchdog is one of them.
They might have changed their name. Of course, it's been a while since I've purchased one myself. But I do remember one time at Price Waterhouse, they had, they had a person in charge of IT for all these different offices, but they were based out of San Francisco. So they had about 8 or 9 offices on the West Coast, including Hawaii and other places. And they said, hey, send us the backup reports every week. So everybody would dutifully send the backup reports and it would never get checked. It was just like, hey, as long as you're doing them, you're probably checking them to make sure they're getting done. No, nobody ever checked them. So one day,
report, here's a report.
Yeah. One day the air conditioner did go down, and this was before a lot of people had these kinds of watchdog devices. And so a lot of the servers just melted. I mean, it got like hotter than the sun in this room. And these servers just shut down and would not come back up. I mean, you can forget about, new hardware because it was the hard drives that were bad, as well as everything else, And so the IT manager then went through all the different reports and was like, oh, these are all showing they're blank. I mean, it's funny now, but it wasn't funny at the time.
Yeah.
So she didn't last, unfortunately. I actually liked her as a boss, but yeah, she didn't last. Somebody else got in her place, and that was the end of that. So yeah, these notifications says, of course, if your server room gets hot, it's going to happen at 2:00 in the morning, not 2:00 in the afternoon. 2:00 in the morning, maybe it's going to be Christmas, New Year's, something like that. That's when it's going to happen. Thanksgiving, the middle of dinner. It happened twice to me.
Ouch.
Yeah. Definitely a good idea to have one of those watchdogs. Maybe would you mind looking that up just to see, what they cost? Sure. And you could probably just do it on Amazon or something, maybe Tech Data, something like that, just so people are aware, there's no reason not to have, these devices. They're little network devices and they have temperature sensors on them and they go above that,
They got IP addresses. They'll send out an alert to your email.
Yeah. While you're looking that up, that reminds me, one time I got called by a school, and it was a high school. And they said, for some reason, our network's running really slow, but we can't figure it out. Everything is at least gigabit in speed. So I went down there, and it took me a few hours, but I finally found out what the bottleneck was. They had purchased one of these watchdog units, but it was a different brand. But it was a 10 meg unit, and it was made at the time, in the times of hubs. So that means there's broadcasts everywhere. So this one little watchdog type unit, like I said, it wasn't that brand, but ended up slowing the entire network down because it was just so noisy. It was just broadcasting tons and tons of data. And so once I unplugged that, it was like whoop, everything was super fast. Yeah. So we got lots of good security stuff going on this week. Did you find anything yet on that unit?
Yeah, I'm still shopping. There's lots of thermometers out there on Amazon. In fact, we have some for our house that are,
well, that's interesting. Rooms. So it'll notify you if your house gets above a certain temperature.
Correct. Yeah, you can, on each of the individual thermometers, you can actually set limits, high and low limits, and it'll give you alerts.
What do those cost?
$12 each.
Wow. And they'll notify you your email or your app?
The app,
Oh, that's really
but
cool.
only these ones are only when you're local.
Oh, so it's only on the land. So if you're
Right.
away from your house, it doesn't really help. Oh,
But
well.
here's a room alert, 3E temperature and environment monitor, 24/7 online. So the good thing about not doing live shows, right?
So you found a lot of good stuff there.
Found a lot of good stuff for the home. For the server room, I found one that's called Room Alert,
Okay.
195 bucks, but it's got network connection. It's got extra sensor connections. You can, attach, various sensors for air quality and such.
Oh, that's cool. Well, if you use Google Chrome, I don't know if you do or not, but an interesting new safety feature that's happening this week is that Chrome is going to notify you if you have any extensions onto your Chrome web browser. Why don't you explain what an extension is for a web browser?
An extension just adds some functionality. Does it have APIs that link into other applications that make it work better in Chrome? I think that's the way it works.
Hmm.
And it'll make it work integrated into Chrome, like with the Google apps.
Yeah.
It'll just open it up in the browser. You can work with it there. I've got several different applications that do that same thing. There's plugins that just make it integrated with the Chrome browser.
Well, so what's happening is a lot of people are getting third-party extensions that are not approved by Google. And so if you have any of those, then the browser is going to notify you. They'll still let you use it, but they're going to constantly nag you to say, hey, this doesn't have the Google seal of approval. So I'm assuming that they probably have to pay for that seal of approval. And, if they don't want to pay for it, then that's how they don't get it. And then if you uninstall it, then that company doesn't make any money. But then again, there's probably also a lot of malicious stuff too going on. So probably a good idea to, have that taken out, or at least review it, to see whether or not it's going to be a problem. So that's Google Chrome version 117. Isn't that funny that they've gotten up to 117 now?
Well, when they update it every week or so, they can plow through quite a few pretty quickly.
Yeah. You have an iPhone.
I do.
And you're hoping to get a new one next month, right?
Yeah, I think it may be coming up here.
All right. They're on 14, I think now, right?
They are.
Yeah. So what? The DEF CON conference in Vegas was happening this past week, and a lot of interesting things came out of that. One was that if you use the control center, which I'm not familiar with since I don't use an iPhone, I use an Android, but you know the control center, right?
Right.
So if you use that to disable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you're really not disabling it. So Wi-Fi, of course, connects you, out to the internet, things like that. Bluetooth connects you to Bluetooth devices like an earpiece and, headphones and, all that different kind of stuff. But they both have security issues. And so if you disable using the control center, all you're doing is disconnecting from that one device. You're not actually turning it off. And so somebody at DEF CON did something kind of fun. They built this little box that it was only like $70. And what it did was it connected to your Bluetooth, and it had a prompt saying, please connect, to this. I mean, it made it look like it was an actual Apple, prompt. And it didn't do anything bad. It was just there to prove a point, which it did. So it alerts the iPhone owners to connect their Apple ID and or share a password with a nearby Apple TV. Yeah. So of course, anybody who did it got put on the wall of shame.
Yes, and rightfully so.
The wall of shame is anytime anybody gets owned, they go ahead and put. You do not want to see yourself on the wall of shame. Yep. It's too embarrassing.
Here's a picture of the guy, and here's his password.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So for $70, you can get one of these devices, but it doesn't actually do any damage. I guess it could though. I mean, if you're prompting somebody to put in a password, you probably could. Do some damage that way, but. So that was pretty fun. So you're supposed to go in and go to settings and turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi if you don't want it on. and then there's no chance that that would happen. So don't do it through the control panel. So do you use the control panel for stuff, or is that something?
Yeah, I do. I use it for those very things.
It's so weird that
For
what's that?
I use it for turning off Bluetooth and for turning off
Oh, well,
wireless.
now you know
because
better.
what they're telling you is that these are just basically shortcuts to the settings, and you are doing the very same thing.
But you're not.
But I guess they proved that you are not.
No, you're just disconnecting from that Wi-Fi
Yeah.
access point and that device on Bluetooth. That is true. But what's interesting is that in a Windows computer, for years we've been using the control panel to do things. And now Microsoft has changed it so you're mostly using the settings option. Now, the settings option sometimes switches you right back to control panel, and all that. But now Apple makes their iPhone operating system do something completely different. It has a control panel, which doesn't actually do what you expect it to, and the settings area, which is harder to get to, which does.
Yeah, the control panel for the iPhone is really just for convenience. You can't get everything from the settings. You can't do everything, but it's just for little things you need to do quickly.
Yeah, quick way. Yeah, but now you know. Now you know better.
Yep, exactly. I will take those off now.
Oh, okay, cool. Netflix. I know you're not a big gamer, but you do have a Netflix account, right?
No, we canceled that.
What do you watch?
Oh, we got Paramount, we got Max, HBO
okay,
Max.
you got all that stuff.
We've got Apple, we've got other stuff.
You got all that stuff. Okay, all right.
Yep.
Well, for those of us who do have Netflix, which is 99% of us, just not the 1% Scott.
Yep.
They are bringing games to Netflix. So they've made a move that people have been eagerly awaiting. I don't know if I have been, but it's Netflix already is kind of choppy, when connecting to Wi-Fi. It's not all that fast to begin with. But they're starting a limited beta test for groups of people in Canada and the UK. They'll bring it to the US once they have everybody else tested. So yeah, they're going to be adding 2 games in the coming weeks. They'll enable playing of these games on PCs using web browsers as well. Oh, okay. Well, at least there you can get decent speed. If you're wired in, especially.
Right.
So I'm not sure what it's going to be, but they say the setup is a similar layout to Nintendo's popular GameCube controller. Remember GameCube at all? Did you ever have one of those?
Never had one of those.
Oh, gee.
I got a PS2.
Okay. Was that the last one you purchased? Last gaming system?
What do you mean purchase? I'm not a big gamer.
Did you dumpster dive for that PS2?
No, I got to given it.
Oh, somebody gave it to you. Okay. Did they give it to you when the PS2 was new, or like after the PS4 came out?
Yeah, I think it was about PS4 time.
Oh, PS4.
Hey, it's still got some good games on it.
Oh, yeah, no, I can agree with that. So that reminds me, there's this other story I wanted to mention, and that is for those people who have an Xbox 360. So that's like one of the first Xboxes that really took off. The original Xbox did not take off so much, but the Xbox 360. So they've had this Xbox 360 store open for decades now, and they are saying that as of July of 2024, they're going to shut it down. So if you have an Xbox 360, which I still have, or if you want to use the Xbox One or Xbox Series X, that has it's all backwards compatible, then you can still get these games. But after July of next year, it is going to be shut down. This is purexbox.com where this is coming from. So if you want to learn more, you can check it out from there. So yeah, that's sad. I mean, I guess it gets to a point where it's just not making money anymore, right?
Yeah, and people are moving on to other consoles, and except for old fogies like me.
This is from the U.S. Department of Defense. I mean, the actual DoD website. Tech officials say manufacturing advances are key to national security. Duh. So advances
thank you for that insight.
Yeah. Advances in manufacturing capabilities critical to the Defense Department's overall national security. Those technologies include biotechnology, microelectronics, hypersonics, and renewable energy. So the whole reason I bring this up is because part of our job here at All Tech Radio, which is of course now a podcast, because nobody's making money on the radio anymore,
Nobody ever did, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Is because you do want to be aware of the way technology is changing. And of course, we've talked about AI many times, which is very important and is going to be a major change. Just hasn't, a lot of people haven't realized it yet, but it's happening already. But there's other things. And what happens is when the Department of Defense comes out and says, here are critical technologies that we're going to need to protect our country and continue growing our economy, guess what's going to happen? The government is going to create a budget for this, and it's going to throw money into education and businesses, things like that to, go out and make money, and teach people how to do these things. So these are areas that you want to get into if you have interest in them and you want to get a great career. So once again, biotechnology, microelectronics, hypersonics, and renewable energy generation. So feel free to look those up and, find out, what types of education degrees are out there, certifications, things like that. And, maybe you might want to look at a career change at this point.
Yeah, definitely. There's people that have been talking about, the coming careers for the next century as if we could really know.
Yeah.
But it's sites like that are going to give you some insight into things that, if you're a 20 or 30 something right now and you want something that's going to be going well in 30 years, then yeah, you need to take a look at these new technologies.
Yeah, technology for me was a second career. I mean, I started out in photography, had photography stores, studios, that kind of thing. And when we switched from film to digital, I went back to school, learn technology. I mean, I started going back to school at 30. There's no reason not to, because things are a changing. So now another interesting thing is the DoD had launched in 2012. They launched this a competition, I guess it is. I'm not sure a better way to say it, called America Makes. America Makes, like America makes something,
Right.
And
America
it works.
makes ...
Yeah, exactly. It works with colleges, government, and workforce, things like that, to accelerate the adoption of these manufacturing and defense-related, types of industries. So definitely something to look into. They got 58 DoD projects aimed at supporting mission essential systems. So, and it may not be for you. Maybe it's somebody in your family, somebody like, I need a new career, recently got out of a relationship. I want to move to a new place. I don't have a job, all those different things.
Yeah.
It might be something for you. So this site called Pew Research. You probably heard of Pew, right?
Oh yeah, they've been around for a long time.
My kids used to say pew 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 whenever they would shoot a fake gun on a computer game.
It's a Star Wars term, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So what Americans know about artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and big tech. So Pew Research, what they do is they go out and they ask people a bunch of stupid questions, and people will answer, what it is that they know or what they don't know. So one of the things was they showed them 4 different passwords, and they said, which one's the most secure? And 87% were able to correctly identify the most secure password. And 13% said password is the most secure password. I don't know.
Who would ever guess that?
Yeah. So let's see. They had some other interesting things. Artificial intelligence, 42% know a deep fake is a seemingly real image, video or audio, something that didn't actually occur. So less than half the people knew what a deep fake was. 32% know large language models such as ChatGPT produce answers based on word patterns, et cetera, and things. Only 32% are even aware of AI, that it even exists.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Only 23%. What's that?
I said, who are they talking to?
Yeah, the average American. 23% know the United States lacks a national privacy law that sets common standards for what companies can do with all their data. Yeah, well, we have a lot of local laws. Like in Oregon, we have tons of privacy, protections. But in other ones, mostly the Republican states, the red states, are going to not have, those types of protections because they are famous for letting big corporations do whatever they want. So I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just telling you that's just the way it is.
Oh, come on, Bob, it's bad.
It's okay.
I remember growing up, the phrase was, "What's good for business is good for America."
I do remember that. Yes, and you're saying that's not true?
I'm saying that given half a chance, business will do whatever they want to whoever they want. So yeah, they are not to be trusted.
Oh, okay. Well, this is interesting. They went to college graduates next. So before it was just the average person, mixture of different things. And they said,
does this get worse?
What's that?
I said, does this get worse?
No, it actually gets better.
Okay.
64% of college graduates can correctly identify an example of a two-factor authentication.
Ooh, excellent.
All right, yeah. 82% know that cookies track users' visits and activity on websites.
Okay.
49% know how large language models like ChatGPT. Oh, so 49% of college graduates know about AI. College graduates, not the average person. It went from 32% to 49%.
That is disappointing.
That is very disappointing. I realize that, the AI in its current form has only been around since Christmas of 22. So, it hasn't been that long. But when it hit, this is like a tsunami. It's amazing that not 100% of the people know what this is.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's talked about all the time. So they're not watching the news, not reading the newspaper, not reading the headlines on Yahoo.
I can understand maybe people who are retired don't really care, but anybody younger than that, yeah. You read the news, right? Well, not everybody does. Strangely enough, not everybody reads the news.
This is one of the top 5 stories has to do with AI. So yeah, they should know it.
Yeah. This is from The Sun. They don't always have the greatest articles, but I thought this one was interesting. Did you know Woolworths? You remember Woolworths, right?
Oh yeah.
We used to call it the 5 and dime store. It was one of them. Woolworths and Woolco. That was the other one. Yeah. They were called 5 and dime stores because you go in and there were a lot of things for a nickel or a dime. I think that was kind of before our time, though. Those stores were around, but by the time we saw the last few of them in the U.S., they were all just like plain old discount stores.
Yeah. I remember the Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
Yeah. When I remember, in the Chicago area where I grew up, Ben Franklin was a craft store. What was it where you were?
I think it was more of a 5 and dime type.
Oh,
place.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So Woolworths is still around in Australia.
Really?
Yes. I would try to talk in an Australian, type of accent, but I don't think anybody would appreciate that.
Especially the people from Australia.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. So Woolworths is a grocery store chain now in Australia rather than a discount store. And apparently it's pretty popular. It's sort of like a Safeway or, Jewel in the, Midwest and whatever. Those are all the same company now.
Yep.
But it's a pretty big deal there, and I guess somehow maybe somebody bought the name. I don't know if it's the original people or not. But.
Quite often that happens.
Yeah, that does happen.
And it's like you really don't know.
Don't know. Yeah. So they're introducing a new high-tech security measure that traps shoplifters inside the store. Now this is for self-checkout. So if you go through a regular checkout, if there are any left, I don't even know because I'm not familiar with this store in Australia. Then you're doing your self checkout and you're like just pretending to swipe some of the items, or maybe you don't swipe all of them, or maybe none of them, and you just start to walk out. Well, as soon as you get to the door, apparently, I'm guessing that they have RFID tags, on all these devices, because an alarm goes off and the doors shut and lock.
Oh, the ACLU is going to have fun with that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they
Yeah.
care if they have any kind of presence in Australia,
Oh,
but yeah.
the Australian Civil Liberties Union.
Oh, there you go. Now, are you saying that because you know it, or are you saying that 'cause you're just making a guess here?
It makes sense. It sounds feasible. So yeah,
It
it's
does
probably true.
sound feasible. I'll give you that. So automatic gates, state-of-the-art surveillance, and rooftop sensors are soon going to be rolled out in stores all across Australia in their Woolworths and maybe some other brands as well. So they're giving it a trial over in Sydney at this point. And so other stores are coming soon with that. So as well as this, a red marker will flash on the machine until the customer is paid, at which point it turns green. That's pretty normal. I mean, it gives you a green check mark, I think, in ours I rarely use the self checkout because I just don't want to do their job.
Yeah, they don't pay me enough. Plus, I like to encourage them to have people.
Yeah, which is why I don't like the new pump your own gas thing. It kept a lot of people, working for one thing. And I know they didn't fire all of them because it's now optional. You can either do it yourself or let them do it. But it kept a lot of people working. But also, I hated smelling like gas. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I like putting people to work. Plus, it's faster. I went to Costco several days after they had made that change.
Yeah.
Oh, it's slow.
So slow.
Because you get all these people kind of bumbling around trying to pump their own gas.
Don't know what they're
not doing it very quickly. And yeah, if you get a good crew from Costco there, the cars just flow through really quickly.
Yeah, that's true. That is pretty quick. That is unfortunate. Now, I remember when this switch started happening in Illinois, because when I was a kid, it was all, somebody had to pump for you. But then when I became a teenager, it was an optional thing. So you could pull up to a place, you would have a designated spot that said full service, and then another one that would say self-service. So if you pulled up to the full service, obviously, somebody would do it for you, but it cost more. Now, we haven't gotten that yet, but I assume that that's where it's going. So you're going to split the gas stations in two, and the self-service side, the slow side with all people trying to figure it all out, is going to be cheaper.
If they want to do that, I want them washing my window. I want them checking my oil.
Yeah, that's right.
I want them
and they would typically do that in a full serve. And then they came out with something called a mini serve. A mini serve is where somebody else does the pumping, but they don't clean anything. And that was a little bit cheaper than the full serve. It was kind of confusing and convoluted, but that's where we're headed, in Oregon. For those of you who are like, what are you talking about? We pump our gas wherever, in Oregon, that's a new thing.
Oh yeah. And we liked it that way.
Yeah. New Jersey is the last state. Can you call New Jersey a state? I guess you can.
I believe you can. It's on the list.
They're the last ones to still have mandatory, pump your own gas. Strangely enough, even though we are starting to pump our own gas, no gas stations have exploded as of yet. So that's a good sign. Very good sign.
Well, the month is young.
This is from a small TV station called Colo 8. They're adding high-tech alert systems in high schools there. So I definitely can see this happening because, in a lot of areas where there's high crime or previous shootings, you have to have a staff of people that are doing all these checks, security checks. You go through a metal detector. I mean, you and I never had to go through a metal detector to go to high school.
No.
That's a sad, realization that's going on now. That anyway, we won't comment on other than it's bad but necessary. So. What's this in Reno, Nevada? What they're going to do is they're going to set up a high-tech alert system to try to speed things up a little bit, so you don't end up having kids to have to get there 45 minutes early to school just so they can get in the doors on time, to go to class. And it's exhausting too. Sometimes you're waiting in the sun, you're waiting in the rain. You're not going to be as good a student when you have to do that kind of thing. So they're adding this new security system to speed things up. And hopefully, if it works out, they'll bring it to other, places as well. But they're going to be using various different alerting systems, automatic scans. I wonder if all these students, who are getting this big doses of radiation, if that's going to be a problem for them when they get older or try to have children, because that doesn't sound good. You have to go through these things multiple times a day. But
it's a very large test case.
Yeah. So they're doing what's called an ID card. I like that they're testing it on Reno, Nevada, which is the same area where they tested the nuclear bombs.
They're going to have to be careful with their data.
I mean, most of them are already damaged anyway, right? You have their DNA all messed up. Might as well.
Yep. That's true.
So they got to have an ID card, and when pressed, can send an alert. They can press it 3 times, and it's either a local thing or a medical issue. If someone falls and breaks their arm, they can continue to dispatch and summon police immediately. So it's interesting that it's not just for getting into school, but it's also for summoning help as well. So if you're getting the what beat out of you in a bathroom by a group of people, you can press a button and help will come.
Excellent.
Yeah. Maybe now they'll leave the doors on the bathrooms. Who knows? Probably not.
kind of like the thing that people not too much older than us have, the little life alert thing around their neck.
Yeah. Not too much older as I like you said that. This looks like this comes from Georgia Tech. New cybersecurity technology relies on a digital fingerprint of individual semiconductor chips. Could help protect the equipment of electrical utilities from malicious attacks. All right, so we had been talking for years. I mean, when we started the radio show many years ago, excuse me with that, we said don't put the electrical grid online. Don't put the water systems online. Don't do any of these things. And of course, multiple attacks have happened since.
So what did they do?
They just kept putting more online.
Yep.
So now I don't think there's a single grid of any type of utility, of course, that's not online anywhere in the country. Even though we all told them, don't do it. You're not going to put. We know you're not going to put the money into the security. Don't do it. I
exactly.
think one of the worst ones was somebody had hacked into a water system and backed the sewage up into the clean water. Like, can you imagine how long that took to fix?
Yeah.
Man. And would you ever trust that water again?
Nope. That's a good basis for moving right there.
Yeah. That's like that, Michigan, was it Lansing or something? I forget what it was. There was a city in Michigan that, nobody could drink their water for years. I don't even know.
They still can't safely.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So this new technology, what it's going to do is, a lot of these things run on computers, and these computers require semiconductors. So semiconductors obviously are going to, they're all part of the motherboards that make the computers run, that run these electrical and other types of grids. So the problem is some of these chips come from unknown sources, or they get resold and resold and resold. And so you might be installing a computer chip into your system that has already been hacked. And all you have to do is plug it in, connect to the internet, and boom, somebody in China or Russia has access to your electrical grid. And during, say a war, they're going to shut down all your electricity, which is going to cause some problems, to say the least. So at Georgia Institute of Technology, what they've done is they've created this additional security chip that will go in and protect. It'll fingerprint the chips that you get. So it'll know the origin of the chip, who made it, when it was made, all the different pieces of information about it, and if for some reason it may have been compromised. So that way, that will be one area that can no longer be exposed by any state actor or bad actor.
Yeah, I remember back in the day that most companies did not have their accounting systems on their network.
Yeah.
It was air gap. They weren't linked. It's like, no, why would we do that?
Still, why would you do that? That's
because your accountants are lazy and they really don't want to work that hard.
Yeah.
It makes it easier for them.
Exactly. They're also adding some cryptography and some other additional security as well.
Yep.
So NBC News. Top U.S. cyber official offers stark warning of potential attacks on infrastructure if tensions with China escalate. So China hackers have been positioning themselves to conduct destructive cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure, such as our electrical grids. So you can't get those new protections out from Georgia Tech fast enough, I think. So,
yeah, they're already late.
Yeah, they're already late. That's right. So these attacks would reflect a significant pivot from the type of historically, attributed attacks to China, which has been just a constant barrage of espionage and theft of data. And that's true. I mean, what we used to do years ago, I don't think we do it quite so much anymore, is we used to go through the log files of firewalls. I mean, now you can have, one of the great things about AI is it can take a lot of that drudgery out of you, right? So you can install an application that will grab all the log files from all your different devices, and then AI will go through and determine whether or not you've been breached. And that's a pretty good thing, considering you may have more log files than people to go through them all.
There is, and a lot of those log file entries, you have to connect the data. You say, oh, well, this happened. Is this a problem? Maybe not. Well, but along with this,
right?
Yes, this indicates something else. So yeah, it's going to help a lot of people in analyzing that data.
Yeah, I think so. So what they're saying is that we got to be ready. That we already have vulnerable devices, as I mentioned before, inside a lot of our critical infrastructure, and they may have already been compromised in many cases. And it's going to be the first thing to go. Like if China attacks Taiwan, they're going to shut down our electrical grid if they can, because that would obviously keep us from responding. I mean, we would have a bigger problem on our hands if we had no electricity. People would die by the thousands within 24 hours alone, because they have people living only because of electricity, for various medical devices. So then we would probably start focusing on Taiwan once electricity was back up, by unplugging the network cable. The other thing is that they can do is they can do a denial of service attack. So that's one of the things that they've been doing for quite a while, which is just filling up the pipe, the internet pipe, with a bunch of garbage ping packets, and then it ends up filling up our pipe, and we can't communicate with them anymore. But what would be way worse is if they already had access to our infrastructure, and all they had to do was shut it down, or maybe sabotage it so it can't just be turned right back on again. We remember Stuxnet. Remember Stuxnet?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what we did along with Israel. Well, I say we, the United States government. I didn't do it.
You deny all knowledge.
No, I did not. Right? No, that's right. I didn't do it. So they went into Iran's nuclear facilities and caused their turbines to spin, some of them just a little bit too fast. And after being that way for a couple of months, it eventually just caused them all to break. So they had to kind of start over again. And pretty ingenious, I got to say, it's a pretty ingenious way of shutting things down. But if you look at all these log files, almost all the attacks right now are these bots, these automated systems from China and Russia that are just looking for an opening. So they're just constantly scanning the same IPs over and over and over until one of them makes a mistake, opens up a port, has a vulnerability due to a software update not happening, and then they take control of it. And in some cases, they don't do anything about it. They just, hold on to that control until they need it. And then that's when they attack.
Yeah, it's one thing to be really careful. It's not as if, if you get attacked, they've been there for a while.
Oh yeah,
they've been watching and waiting, waiting for the right time. And it's not like it just happened today. You can't look at your logs today and find out how they got in. You got to look 6 months ago, and quite often people don't keep them.
Yeah, that's true.
But they didn't see it back then, so.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Sony hack. So North Korea, I think that they paid somebody. I don't think they did it themselves. But North Korea somehow attacked Sony, and they were in there for 2 years. And they were just collecting emails and files and things. And then finally they just released them all. And everybody found out what they didn't like about each other. So it all had to do with North Korea getting back at Japan, because they own Sony, for putting out that movie that boy, what was the name of that movie where they replaced Kim Jong-un at the time, I think it was, or then they switched to Kim Jong-il at the last, or I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't remember the name, but it was funny.
it was a funny movie. It was. And I saw it. I laughed. So they, we're getting back at them for this disrespectful movie about North Korea. So
they're just way too sensitive.
what's funny is everybody in Hollywood started seeing what other people were saying about each other, because they, Sony is obviously, they make a lot of movies and in Hollywood. And so all these different stars were finding out what the directors were saying about them. Oh, that was bad. That was bad. And one funny thing is, do you ever watch America's Got Talent?
Not for a while.
Okay. So America's Got Talent used to have Howard Stern as a judge, and huge ratings. It was great, everything like that. And then Simon, you remember Simon, who was on one of the other shows. He's on multiple different shows. And
Great Britain's Got Talent, things like that.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. He emailed somebody at Sony and said, hey, why don't you fire Stern and put me on instead, because here's all the things that I offer. Well, that email got out and got to Howard Stern, and of course he just blasted Simon Cowell for this. And then he ended up just quitting over the whole thing, and then Cowell took over anyway. So it's just kind of funny. I mean, that's just one of the probably thousands of stories out there. I haven't heard them all, but that was just one that I had heard. So it is amazing how the trickle down that happened all because of this one movie. Security, gotta have it. Microsoft, speaking of security and securing your PC, one of the things that I hated about buying a Microsoft computer or a Dell computer or any other computer with a pre-installed Windows is that it comes with pre-installed applications, and it has bloat on there. And some of those applications can be used for hacking and other things like that, being hacked into. But as of now, Microsoft is going to allow you to uninstall just about all the different bloatware apps that come with the computers. So finally, you can get rid of these ridiculous applications that you'll never have any reason for.
You remember that app that we used to use to clean up computers?
Boy, there's a lot of them. I'm not sure.
The actual name of it was the Decrapifier.
Oh, yes. I remember that. Yeah, you would use that to clear out all the stuff. They would figure out how to get all the registry settings, and
I mean, we had business computers loaded with games. We just, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of those could be used as launching points for security problems.
Yep.
But other thing is, just for the performance of the computer, a lot of people don't realize this, but you have what's called a TSR, terminate and stay resident programs. So what that means is that these programs launch when your operating system launches, and they eat up RAM, they eat up hard drive, they eat up CPU cycles. And a lot of people will get their computers to run faster if they, disable that. So if you want to, you go to Task Manager. You can get there many different ways. Easiest way is just to do Control-Alt-Delete and then click on Task Manager. Excuse me. And then you can, I'm going to just pull mine up right here. So you've got, let's see here. Startup apps. There you go. So you see all those startup apps? Some are enabled, some are disabled. So what you want to do is disable all the ones you really don't need. And when you do that, you can, go ahead and reboot your computer, and you'll notice it runs a lot faster. So I went in and disabled all the ones I don't need and just left the few on there that I do need, enabled. And, but by default, if I left those all on, computer would definitely run slower for me.
Yeah. And, sometimes a good idea is just to go through and, do as you say, turn them off. And if there's something you don't know what it is, turn it off anyway.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Because you can always boot back into safe mode and go right back into it and turn it back on, then reboot into regular mode. I one time accidentally disabled my mouse pad. So, I obviously couldn't use my mouse pad until I went back into that same spot and re-enabled it. So fortunately, I could still use an external mouse just fine, or I could have just restarted into safe mode, which is where you press F8 or you boot off of a DVD and go into the repair mode and tell it to boot into safe mode, and you'll be good to go.
There's one brand of laptops that has one of the corners. If you double tap on it, it turns off the pad.
Oh, interesting.
And I've had people that didn't know it did that and accidentally turned it off. It's like, They don't know now. They didn't do anything.
Oops.
But their touchpad stopped working.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you're going to get an iPhone next month, but I want to tell you about the iPhone 15 for a second. Now, this is not an endorsement of any kind. So it's rumored to support faster charging speeds because it's going to go up to 35 watts. Ooh, that's going to warm up your phone.
That will, yes.
So they're switching on iPhone 15. They're switching to USB-C because the European Union was kind of ticked off at them for constantly changing their charging cords and costing consumers money. So everything's going to be USB-C, which I think is great because my Android phones are already USB-C. So I think it'll make things better for everybody to have a universal cord. And it's going to charge the iPhone 15 much faster than previous ones. You know, lately, they've already upgraded about everything they can do on these phones, except for incremental speed, incremental camera, increases and stuff like that. But other than that, they don't really usually have that much of a change. So if you are looking to get an iPhone before the 15 comes out, I would say just go ahead and get that. I don't think that it matters all that much. There are the adapters to go to USB-C, so if you're plugging into a car that only has C. I don't know if the new cars have switched from USB-A, which is the traditional USB, to USB-C yet, but I know that's coming. So if you have an older iPhone, then you'll have to get an adapter for it. So right now, USB-A is just becoming outdated. I mean, but still... I bought a car a couple of years ago and it had USB-A on it. I'm happier with it, even though you have to keep reversing the cord until you finally figure out how to plug it in.
Yeah. I might actually keep adapters on hand for C to A and A to C.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know when, somebody has an old device they need to use, but they only have C on their new laptop.
Yeah. I was handed an external monitor. For a laptop, so in case you wanted two monitors when you travel, this was a nice little USB-C, touch screen, the whole thing. But Unfortunately, I had no place to plug it in. Without an adapter. The adapter would have done it, but it's just kind of funny that they did that. So there you go, USB-C. It's funny. I have a couch. When we bought the couch, it had the seats that go up when you push a button, they do like that, so it's like a recliner built into the couch. It came with USB-A, plugs on them as well. So you can charge your phone. You got to be able
to sit there and charge your phone.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. And then whenever I go to anybody else's house and they don't have that, I'm like, oh man.
You guys are so 20th century.
Come on. Is all your couch, all you do is sit on it? What?
Yeah. My airline seat has charging ports. Right. You don't have charging ports? Come on.
That's right. That's crazy. All right, Scott, anything else you want to say this week?
Well, I was going to talk to the people in the Portland area. If you have a need of IT services, give me a call. 503-622-9817. I usually tell my clients I can do as much or as little as you want. I've got some that I run everything. Other ones that call me with questions every month. They want to do it themselves. They like doing it themselves. But, whatever you need. Maybe you just need a second opinion on how you're set up. We have a new client starting next month, and they asked us to check out their infrastructure. And we did. And we came back to them and said, quite frankly, the other IT company did what we would have done.
Oh,
it's fine.
Okay.
And they said, oh, that's okay. We still want you because we don't like them anymore.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah.
Oh, you did mention one thing. You sent me an email about it, the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, which is coming to PSU, Oregon State, and PSU. Okay. Center of Excellence. Do you know, you want to say anything about that?
I have not really dug into that yet. Actually, a client in Illinois sent me that link.
Oh, okay. That place still exists.
I haven't really dug into it much.
Illinois still around?
They're still there.
Nobody's gotten rid of it.
Lives in Chicago.
Okay. The Center of Excellence. They'll be bringing a lot of speakers in. It'd be interesting to check that out. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. All right. Well, we've had another fun and exciting All Tech Radio Show podcast. We'll see you again next time.